A warm breeze rustles through the trees in Willow Creek Park, a picturesque suburban escape filled with families enjoying the afternoon. Laughter from children echoes through the playground, and the scent of freshly cut grass lingers in the air. Joggers pass by, an elderly couple sits on a bench feeding pigeons, and a group of teens skate along the paved trails. Near the playground, Emma Carter sits on a wooden picnic bench, watching her 7-year-old son, Lucas, as he climbs the jungle gym. Her face carries the calm yet cautious look of a protective mother, always aware, always watching. Emma isn't just any mother. She's a woman who's had to fight for everything in life. Raising a child alone hasn't been easy, but she's managed. Today is one of those rare, peaceful moments where she allows herself to breathe, to enjoy the simple things. Lucas, energetic and full of life, calls out, "Mom, watch me," as he attempts to cross the monkey bars. Emma smiles, clapping for him. Not far away, a man leans against a black SUV, watching them. Jake Carter, Emma's older brother, is home on leave after an overseas mission. A former Navy SEAL, Jake has the presence of a man who's seen the worst of the world but carries himself with quiet confidence. He's here to visit his sister and nephew, enjoying some much-needed family time. Everything seems perfect, but that peace is about to be shattered. A strong, independent single mother in her early 30s. Life has thrown many challenges her way, but she's endured them all with resilience. Protective of her son, she doesn't tolerate disrespect. A playful and innocent 7-year-old boy who loves superheroes, climbing things, and spending time with his mom near the playground. Emma Carter sits on a weathered wooden picnic bench, the sun casting golden streaks through the leaves above her. She watches her 7-year-old son, Lucas, as he clambers up the jungle gym with the boundless energy only children seem to possess. Her face carries a calm, contented look, but behind it lies the ever-present vigilance of a mother who has had to fight for everything in life. Emma doesn't just watch, she observes. She notices the way Lucas grips the bars, the slight wobble in his step, the other children playing nearby. She is always aware, always ready. But today, for once, she allows herself to breathe. A rare, peaceful moment. The kind of moment she cherishes but never fully trusts. "Mom, watch me," Lucas calls out, stretching his small arms to grab the next monkey bar. Emma smiles, clapping for him. "You've got this, buddy." Her voice is warm, steady, encouraging. Lucas grins and swings forward, his excitement contagious. To him, this is just another fun day at the park. But to Emma, it's more than that. It's a reminder of how far they've come, of the battles she's fought, the sacrifices she's made. Being a single mother hasn't been easy, but she's managed. She's survived, and she's built a life where her son feels safe, loved, and happy. Not far away, a man leans casually against a black SUV, his eyes hidden behind a pair of dark aviators. His posture is relaxed, but his attention is sharp, focused. Jake Carter, Emma's older brother, a former Navy SEAL. Jake carries himself with a quiet, effortless confidence, the kind of presence that doesn't demand attention but commands it. His short-cropped hair, squared jaw, and solid frame are all hallmarks of a man who has seen the worst of the world and come out the other side. But right now, he isn't on a mission. He isn't tracking hostiles or scanning a battlefield. He's just here to visit his sister and nephew, to enjoy the small, simple moments of life that he so often misses while deployed. Lucas finally reaches the end of the monkey bars and drops to the ground with a triumphant laugh. "Did you see that?" Jake pushes off the SUV with a smirk. "Not bad, kid. You sure you're not part monkey?" Lucas giggles, puffing out his chest with pride. "Nope. Just practicing to be a superhero." Emma chuckles, shaking her head. "You already are one, buddy." Jake watches them, his smile lingering for a moment. This is what he fights for, what he protects. Everything seems perfect, because just beyond the parking lot, 3 men on motorcycles pull in, their engines growling like distant thunder. Emma's older brother, a former Navy SEAL. Though he appears calm and composed, he's always alert. Years of military experience have made him highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat and strategy. A group of loud, reckless troublemakers who have no respect for anyone but themselves. The leader, a towering brute with a mean streak and a reputation for causing trouble. Randy's right-hand men, always looking for a laugh at someone else's expense. Duke is aggressive, while Sparky is a wiry, fast-talking instigator. A sudden, deep rumbling sound cuts through the peaceful afternoon. Motorcycle engines. Loud, obnoxious, and unsettling. Heads turn as a group of bikers roll into the park, their presence instantly changing the atmosphere. Some parents glance their way before quickly looking away, not wanting trouble. A few families gather their children and leave. Emma watches as 3 leather-clad men park their motorcycles near the playground. She feels a twinge of unease in her stomach. Something about them feels off. Lucas, still oblivious to the shift in energy, continues playing. The bikers make themselves at home, blaring rock music from a portable speaker, smoking, and tossing their cigarette butts on the grass. "Nice place," Randy mutters sarcastically, taking a deep drag from his cigarette before exhaling a cloud of smoke into the air. Duke chuckles. "Yeah, real cozy. Think we should stretch our legs." They step off their bikes and stroll toward the park bench, scanning the people around them. Their eyes land on Emma. Randy smirks as he looks at Emma. Well, what do we have here?" Emma pretends not to hear him, keeping her focus on Lucas. Duke nudges Sparky, grinning. "Looks like a tough one. I betcha she thinks she's too good for us." Sparky laughs, his voice dripping with amusement. "Betcha she's all lonely, just waiting for some real company." Emma clenches her jaw but doesn't react. She's had her fair share of catcallers and jerks in the past. The best way to deal with them is to ignore them. But Randy isn't the type to be ignored. "Hey, sweetheart, why don't you bring that pretty face over here?" He calls out louder, his voice carrying across the playground. Emma takes a deep breath and finally turns to face them. "Could you keep your voices down? There are children here." Duke and Sparky howl with laughter, nudging each other. "Oh, she's got a mouth on her." Duke grins. Randy takes a step closer, towering over Emma. His grin turns into a sneer. He doesn't like being told what to do. "Relax, sweetheart. We're just being friendly. No need to get all uptight." His tone is mocking, daring her to push back. Emma stands her ground. "This is a public park. Take your noise and your cigarettes somewhere else." Sparky whistles. Feisty. I like that. Lucas runs up to his mom, clutching her arm. Mom, who are they? He asks innocently. Emma places a protective hand on his shoulder. No one, sweetheart. Just some men who don't know how to behave. The bikers laugh again, but there's an edge of cruelty in their amusement now. What they don't realize, though, is that someone is watching them. Jake Carter, standing a short distance away, his expression unreadable. And if they keep pushing, they're about to find out exactly how badly they've underestimated this family. The air grows thick with unease. The once lively park now feels like a powder keg, seconds from ignition. The bikers, reveling in the fear they instill, crank up their antics. Loud laughter echoes through the space, their crude comments cutting through the air like knives. Nearby parents exchange uneasy glances. A mother quickly gathers her children, whispering urgent words before hurrying off. A jogger who had paused for a drink suddenly decides to keep running. The playful chatter of children dims as they, too, sense the shift in energy. Lucas, sensing his mother's discomfort, abandons the jungle gym and rushes back to her side. His small hand tugs at hers. Mom, can we go home now? He asks. His voice barely above a whisper. Emma, always composed, nods. Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go. But as they turn to leave, a barrier forms. Randy Coleman, the self-proclaimed leader of this gang, plants himself firmly in Emma's path. His leather-clad frame is broad, his smirk oozing with condescension. He reaches out, and before Emma can react, he snatches her bag from her shoulder. Well, now, that's not very polite, he drawls. He dangles the bag by its strap, grinning. You want it back. Say please. Lucas grips his mother's arm tighter, his knuckles turning white. His young eyes dart between the men and his mother's face, looking for reassurance. Emma exhales through her nose, forcing herself to stay calm. Losing her temper won't help. She meets Randy's gaze, steady, unwavering. That doesn't belong to you, she says evenly. Hand it back. But her refusal to play into their game only amuses them. Duke and Sparky chuckle darkly, clearly entertained by the unfolding drama. Lucas, sensing the shift in his mother's energy, abandons the jungle gym and rushes to her side. His small hand clutches hers, his fingers tightening with an urgency only a child can feel when something isn't right. Lucas grips his mother's arm tighter, his knuckles turning white. His young eyes dart between the men and his mother's face, searching desperately for reassurance. Emma doesn't flinch, doesn't waver. She exhales slowly through her nose, keeping her voice level. That doesn't belong to you. Her words are simple, direct, controlled. But Randy and his crew aren't used to people standing up to them. Duke lets out a low chuckle, shaking his head. Lady, I don't think you understand how this works. Sparky cracks his neck, smirking. Yeah, see, when we take something, it's ours now. Emma doesn't react. She won't give them the satisfaction. Lucas, sensing the shift in his mother's energy, abandons the jungle gym and rushes to her side. His small hand clutches hers, his fingers tightening with urgency. That deep, instinctive fear only a child can feel when something isn't right. Emma gives his hand a reassuring squeeze. but never looks away from Randy. The park, once filled with the sounds of laughter and playful shouts, has fallen into an uneasy silence. Parents gather their kids, pulling them away. Some pretend not to notice, while others whisper behind hands, watching nervously. Jake watches too. From his bench, he sees everything. The way Emma keeps herself between Lucas and the bikers. The way her weight shifts ever so slightly, not in fear, but in readiness. But most of all, he sees Randy's mistake. Because Randy isn't just messing with a mother and her son. He's messing with the wrong family. "Mom, can we go home now?" he whispers. His voice barely audible over the distant hum of the park. Emma, always composed, nods. "Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go." She doesn't want to alarm him, but she can feel them watching. The hairs on the back of her neck rise, her instincts screaming that something isn't right. She's learned to trust those instincts. She moves to leave, guiding Lucas toward the car. But suddenly, a barrier forms. Randy Coleman steps into their path. The self-proclaimed leader of this ragtag gang, Randy is all swagger and cheap bravado. His leather jacket is worn, his jeans stained with grease, and his smirk oozes condescension. He's the kind of man who thrives on intimidation, on making people feel small. And right now, Emma is his target. She knows his type. She's dealt with men like him before. But Randy? He has no idea who he's dealing with. Before she can react, he snatches her bag from her shoulder in one swift motion. "Well, now, that's not very polite," he drawls, amusement lacing his words. He dangles the bag by its strap, swinging it just out of her reach like some twisted game. "You want it back. Say please." Lucas grips his mother's arm tighter, his knuckles turning white. His wide, innocent eyes dart between the men and Emma, searching her face for reassurance. Emma doesn't react. Not yet. She exhales slowly, steadying her pulse. She could lash out, could end this right now, but not with Lucas standing right here. She needs to be smart. "That doesn't belong to you," she says evenly, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Hand it back." Her refusal to play into their game only amuses them. Behind Randy, his two lackeys, Duke and Sparky, chuckle darkly, their amusement evident. Duke, a burly man with a shaved head and a permanent sneer, nudges Sparky. "Looks like we got ourselves a tough one." Sparky, lanky and grinning like a hyena, cocks his head. "Yeah, but how tough can she really be?" Emma stands her ground. She knows how this works. They expect her to cower, to beg, to break down. But she does none of those things. Instead, she stares them down, calm and unflinching. And the fact that she isn't scared? "Oh, she's got some fire," Sparky says, nudging Duke. "Yeah," Duke chimes in, "I bet she's real fun when she's mad." Randy laughs and, instead of returning the bag, tosses it over to Duke. "Go long." Duke catches it and waves it in the air. "Come and get it, lady." The cruel game of keep away begins. Emma doesn't cry, doesn't plead. She simply stands there, arms crossed, watching them like a predator assessing prey. Lucas tugs at her arm. "Mom, it's okay, sweetheart," she murmurs. But inside, she's seething. She could charge at them, wrestle her bag away. But that would put Lucas at risk. No, she needs to be smart. The bikers expect her to react, to break down, to beg, to cower. When she does none of those things, they grow frustrated. Come on, lady, Randy sneers. A little please ain't so hard, is it? Still, she says nothing. She just stares. And that's when a new voice cuts through the tension. From a nearby bench, a shadow stirs. Jake Carter, Emma's older brother, had been sitting quietly, watching the entire scene unfold. His relaxed posture had masked a silent assessment, taking in the gang's movements, their interactions, their weak points. Now, he stands. He moves toward them, slow and steady, the embodiment of calm authority. His presence doesn't demand attention, it commands it. You boys having fun? The laughter stops. Duke turns first, scoffing. Who the hell are you? Jake ignores him. His sharp eyes remain locked onto Randy. His posture loose but deliberate. Emma's shoulders relax, just a little. She knows her brother, knows what he's capable of. Jake doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't flex, doesn't threaten. He doesn't need to, and that makes him all the more dangerous. Randy sizes him up. Another guy in a t-shirt and jeans, short-cropped hair, a lean build. Nothing about him screams threat. What's it to you? Randy sneers, trying to reclaim his dominance. Jake doesn't answer right away. He lets the silence linger, stretching it just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Emma sees it, the slight shift in Randy's stance, the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. He doesn't know why, but something about Jake puts him on edge. Good. Jake tilts his head slightly. That bag you stole? It belongs to my sister. Randy snorts. Yeah. What are you gonna do about it? Jake smiles. A slow, knowing smile. Emma knows that look. And suddenly, the bikers are in far deeper trouble than they realize. Randy takes a step closer to Jake, his jaw tightening. He's used to people cowering when he gets aggressive. But Jake, he doesn't flinch. You got a death wish, pretty boy. Randy sneers, his voice low and menacing. Jake just smirks. You don't want to do this. The bikers exchange glances before bursting into laughter. What? You gonna call the cops? Duke taunts, nudging Sparky. Jake exhales slowly. No, his voice is calm. I'm gonna handle it myself. The shift is almost imperceptible, but Emma sees it. The way Jake squares his shoulders. The way his weight subtly shifts onto the balls of his feet. Randy cracks his knuckles. That's so. And then, he throws the first punch. Time seems to slow. Jake barely moves. His body shifting just enough to let Randy's fist sail past his face. Before Randy can react, Jake's hand snaps out, grabbing his wrist and twisting it at just the right angle. A sharp yelp escapes Randy's throat as he stumbles forward. Wrong move, Jake mutters. Duke and Sparky hesitate for half a second before lunging at Jake. But hesitation is fatal. Jake moves like a ghost, slipping past Duke's swing with ease. A precise jab to the ribs sends Duke staggering back. Wheezing, the shift is almost imperceptible. But Emma sees it. Jake exhales slowly. No, his voice is calm. Steady. Emma knows that tone. Dangerous men don't raise their voices. They don't need to. The shift is almost imperceptible, but Emma sees it. The way Jake squares his shoulders, his posture subtly shifting, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. A lifetime of training, a lifetime of discipline. Randy cracks his knuckles, mistaking Jake's stillness for hesitation. That's so. Then, he throws the first punch. Jake doesn't flinch, doesn't tense. His body simply moves, fluid and effortless, just enough for Randy's fist to slice through the air, missing by mere inches. And before Randy even realizes he's swung at nothing, Jake's hand is already there. A quick, precise movement, grabbing his wrist, twisting it at the perfect angle. A sharp yelp rips from Randy's throat as his body stumbles forward, completely out of his control. Jake's voice is barely above a whisper. Wrong move. Duke and Sparky hesitate. Half a second. And that's all Jake needs. They charge. But hesitation is fatal. Jake moves like a ghost, already slipping past Duke's wild swing before the punch is even fully thrown. Then, a jab. Not a haymaker. Not a brawl-style punch. Precise. Controlled. Ribs. Solar plexus. Duke gasps, staggering back, clutching his side, wheezing. Sparky doesn't slow down. He swings, fast and sloppy, hoping momentum will be enough. It isn't. Jake catches his arm mid-swing, a swift pivot, and suddenly, Sparky's own weight is used against him. A twist, a shift of force, and Sparky is face-first in the dirt, groaning. Randy, still clutching his wrist, watches in horror. The fight isn't even a fight. It's a lesson. Jake straightens, adjusting his jacket as if nothing happened. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, land on Randy. A single step forward. Randy flinches. Jake doesn't need to say anything. The message is already clear. They picked the wrong man. Jake squares his shoulders. His weight subtly shifts onto the balls of his feet. His stance relaxed but ready, a predator assessing its prey. His expression remains calm, but his eyes darken with the kind of intensity that only comes from experience. He's done watching. Randy, oblivious to the danger he's just provoked, cracks his knuckles. The sound echoes in the tense air, a feeble attempt at intimidation. That's so, he sneers, his ego refusing to let this go. And then, he throws the first punch. Time slows. Emma doesn't flinch. Lucas grips her hand tighter, his small fingers digging into her palm. Jake barely moves. His head tilts just enough for Randy's fist to whiff past his face, the momentum carrying the biker forward. Before Randy can even process his mistake, Jake strikes. He snatches Randy's wrist mid-air and twists, just the right amount of pressure applied to the tendons, a technique honed through years of training. A sharp yelp escapes Randy's throat as his own force betrays him, sending him stumbling forward, completely off balance. Wrong move, Jake mutters, his voice quiet, deadly. Randy grits his teeth, his body hunched, his pride burning hotter than the pain in his wrist. Duke and Sparky hesitate, just for half a second. And hesitation is fatal. They exchange a brief glance, silently debating whether to jump in. But that moment of doubt, it costs them. Jake moves first, like a ghost. Duke lunges, his beefy arms swinging in a wide arc, Too slow, too predictable. Jake ducks. In one fluid motion, he steps in close, driving a precise jab into Duke's ribs, just below the diaphragm, the kind of hit that steals breath away. Duke stumbles back, wheezing, his face contorted in shock. He's felt pain before, but never like this. Sparky barely has time to react before Jake shifts his focus. The wiry biker rushes in, fists clenched, but Jake is already a step ahead. Jake sidesteps, fluid as water. Sparky's momentum carries him too far forward, straight into Jake's waiting arm. Jake's elbow connects with Sparky's sternum, and the air whooshes out of his lungs. He crumples, gasping. Randy, still cradling his wrist, watches in stunned silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was their game. They were supposed to be in control. And yet, in a matter of seconds, one man has completely dismantled them. Jake exhales, rolling his shoulders, not even winded. And then, he speaks. "Still think you picked the right fight?" Sparky charges from the side. Jake steps into his momentum, redirecting him with a simple maneuver, using his own force against him. Sparky crashes onto the ground with a grunt. Randy, still clutching his wrist, roars in anger and swings again. Jake sidesteps smoothly, hooks his foot behind Randy's knee, and sends him sprawling onto the pavement. The entire fight lasts less than 10 seconds. The bikers groan in pain, dazed and humiliated. For a moment, there's nothing but silence. Then, "Go, Uncle Jake." Lucas' voice rings out, breaking the tension. His little fist pumps in the air, his fear replaced with awe. The crowd erupts in murmurs, some people even clapping. A few had caught the entire thing on their phones. Emma crosses her arms, smirking down at Randy. "Told you to give me my bag back." Duke struggles to sit up, his pride wounded more than his body. "Who the hell are you?" Jake crouches next to Randy, his voice barely above a whisper. "Pick on someone your own size next time." Randy's face burns with embarrassment. He wants to retaliate, to get the last word, but he knows. He knows Jake isn't someone you mess with. He looks around, realizing the crowd is still watching, recording, judging, and then, the distant wail of sirens. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the evening glow. Several officers rush into the park, hands hovering over their holsters. A concerned mother points at the bikers, rattling off details. Randy groans, trying to gather himself. "We gotta get outta here." Duke and Sparky don't need convincing. They scramble to their feet, limping toward their motorcycles. Emma, still standing tall, locks eyes with Randy one last time. "Better luck next time," she says, her voice dripping with amusement. Randy clenches his jaw but says nothing. He knows better now. The bikers rev their engines and speed off, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of their own failure. The dust settles. The tension lingers, the park is still buzzing, the weight of what just happened hanging heavy in the air. Parents pull their kids closer, murmuring in hushed voices. Some are shaken, others thrilled, whispering to each other like they just witnessed something out of a movie. Randy clenches his jaw, fists tightening at his sides. His pride is in shambles, his body aching from the fight. He feels the weight of 100 eyes on him, watching, judging, recording. Phones are still out. Someone's going to upload this. He knows it. By tomorrow, the whole town will see him get humiliated by a guy who barely broke a sweat. And then, the distant wail of sirens. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the golden hues of the setting sun, illuminating the park in urgent bursts. Several officers rush in, hands hovering over their holsters, scanning the scene. One mother, her face tight with concern, steps forward. She points straight at the bikers, her voice sharp and unwavering. They were harassing that woman and her son. They started the fight. Randy groans, scrambling to his feet. We gotta get outta here. Duke and Sparky don't need to be told twice. They stumble toward their bikes, still winded, still aching. Emma stands tall, watching them retreat. She's calm, too calm. There's no fear in her eyes, just quiet amusement. As Randy throws his leg over his bike, their gazes lock one last time. Her smirk deepens. Better luck next time. Randy grits his teeth, but he doesn't answer. What could he say? He lost, and he knows it. The engines roar to life, and with one last glance at the crowd, the flashing cameras, the silent stares, the bikers speed off, their tires kicking up dust, their failure trailing behind them. The dust settles. The tension lingers. But everyone knows. They won't be coming back. Emma crosses her arms, her weight shifting to one hip as she looks down at Randy, her expression a mix of amusement and annoyance. This could have been avoided. Told you to give me my bag back, she says coolly. Randy doesn't respond. He can't. His breath is still uneven, his pride stinging worse than the throbbing in his wrist. Duke, still gasping from the hit to his ribs, struggles to sit up, his face twisted in disbelief. He glares at Jake, forcing out the only words his ego allows. "Who the hell are you?" Jake doesn't react at first. He simply watches Duke for a moment, studying him. Then, he crouches beside Randy, his voice barely above a whisper. "Pick on someone your own size next time." Randy flinches. The words cut deeper than any punch could, because Jake isn't yelling. He isn't gloating. He's giving them a warning, a promise of what would happen if they ever tried this again. Randy's jaw tightens. He wants to say something, wants to spit out an insult, a threat, anything to save face. But he knows. Jake isn't someone you mess with. Randy's eyes flicker to the growing crowd around them. Parents, teenagers, even elderly park-goers, all watching, recording, judging. Phones are out, cameras rolling. This isn't just an embarrassing defeat. It's public. His humiliation is forever, captured in pixels and video clips that will spread before they even reach their bikes. And then, the distant wail of sirens. The flashing red and blue lights slice through the fading sunlight, bouncing off the metal of the jungle gym and swing set. Several officers rush into the park, hands hovering over their holsters, scanning the scene. A concerned mother, a woman who had been near the playground when it all began, points at the bikers, rattling off details to the nearest cop. "Those guys, they started it. Threatened a woman and her kid." Randy groans, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. "We gotta get outta here." Duke and Sparky don't need convincing. They scramble to their feet, wincing as their injuries remind them of Jake's efficiency. No time to dwell on it now. Duke grips his ribs, gritting his teeth against the pain as he limps toward his bike. Sparky is less composed, his breath still ragged from the hit to his chest. They stumble, half running, half limping toward their motorcycles, fumbling with their keys. But before Randy leaves, he makes the mistake of looking back. Emma is still standing tall, the very woman he thought would be an easy target. Their eyes lock, and then she smirks. "Better luck next time," she says, her voice dripping with amusement. Randy's fingers tighten around his handlebars. He wants to respond, wants to lash out. But what could he possibly say? He lost, and everyone saw it. Instead, he clenches his jaw and jerks his head toward his men. "Let's go." Engines roar to life. Tires screech against the pavement as the three bikers speed off, their silhouettes quickly swallowed by the city's fading daylight. They're gone, but the echoes of their failure linger in the air. The officers approach Emma, asking for details. Witnesses eagerly step forward, eager to share what they saw. Lucas beams up at his uncle. "That was awesome." Jake ruffles the boy's hair, flashing a rare grin. "Just doing my job, kid." Emma exhales, finally allowing herself to relax. "Guess we picked the right park today." Jake chuckles. Or maybe they picked the wrong people to mess with. One thing is clear: Randy and his crew won't be coming back anytime soon. As the last of the sirens fade into the distance, Emma turns to Jake. "Thank you," she says sincerely. "Not just for me. For Lucas too." Jake waves it off with a casual shrug. "What are big brothers for?" He ruffles Lucas's hair, making the boy giggle. The air in the park is still charged, the tension slowly ebbing away as the bikers' engines fade into the distance. The police officers move swiftly, splitting up to gather statements. Not that they need much encouragement. The witnesses, mothers, joggers, and curious onlookers, are more than eager to recount what they just saw. A woman with a stroller animatedly gestures toward where Randy and his crew stood just moments ago. It was unbelievable. The big one threw the first punch, and then bam! That guy barely moved. A jogger nods excitedly, and the way he handled them, like he knew exactly what they were going to do before they did it. The officers exchange glances, jotting down notes. Nearby, Lucas practically vibrates with excitement. "That was awesome," he beams, looking up at his uncle like he just met a real-life superhero. Jake, ever composed, ruffles the boy's hair. "Just doing my job, kid." Emma finally exhales, her body losing the tension she didn't even realize she was still holding. She glances at Jake, shaking her head with a small smirk. "Guess we picked the right park today." Jake chuckles, arms crossed. Or maybe they picked the wrong people to mess with. One thing is certain: Randy and his crew won't be coming back anytime soon. As the last of the sirens disappear into the evening air, Emma turns to Jake, her expression softer now. There's something unspoken in her gaze, something deep. Gratitude, relief, memories of a time long past, when they were just kids, and Jake, always the protector, stood between her and the world. "Thank you," she says sincerely. "Not just for me. For Lucas too." Jake shrugs it off, like it's nothing, like it's just what he does. But his smirk is gentler this time. "What are big brothers for?" Before Emma can say anything else, Jake snatches Lucas into a headlock, playfully ruffling his hair again. The boy squeals with laughter, squirming in his grasp. Emma watches them, her heart swelling. She doesn't say it, but she knows. No matter how far Jake goes, how long he's away, he'll always come back, because that's who he is. Lucas looks up at his uncle, his eyes filled with admiration. "Can you teach me how to fight like that?" Jake chuckles. "First, let's work on tying your shoelaces without tripping." Emma smiles, watching their interaction. The fear and anxiety that had gripped her earlier have completely faded. Slowly, the park returns to normal. The parents who had hurriedly gathered their children now begin to settle back down. Kids return to the swings, the laughter and chatter of the park resuming as if nothing had happened. A few parents approach Jake, shaking his hand. "That was incredible," one father says. "Most people would have walked away. Someone had to step up." Jake replies simply, a woman with a toddler on her hip sighs. "I just wish I had the courage to say something. We all saw what was happening." But she trails off, guilt in her voice. Emma gives her a reassuring smile. It's easy to freeze when trouble shows up. But today, we saw what happens when the right person stands up. Jake remains quiet, but Emma knows her brother well enough to see the hint of approval in his eyes. As they start walking toward the car, Emma glances at Jake. "I think I learned something today." "Oh yeah," he raises an eyebrow. She nods. "I've always taught Lucas to be strong, to stand up for himself. But sometimes, even strong people need help." Jake gives a small smile. "You were already strong. You didn't need me to fight your battles. You just needed a little backup this time." Emma smirks, nudging him playfully. "Next time, I'll take them myself." Jake chuckles. "I'd pay good money to see that." Lucas grins up at his mom. "Yeah, Mom's tough." Emma squeezes his hand. "That's right, buddy. And so are you." With that, they leave the park, not as victims, but as a family that stood tall in the face of trouble. And as for Randy and his crew, later that night, in a dimly lit dive bar on the outskirts of town, Randy, Duke, and Sparky sit nursing their bruises along with their drinks. The atmosphere is thick with cigarette smoke and bad decisions. A few bikers from a different crew saunter over, smirking. "Heard you boys got handled by some dude at a kiddie park." One sneers. Duke scowls. "Wasn't just some dude." Sparky mutters. "Guy moved like a ghost. Fast. Precise." The leader of the other gang laughs, slapping Randy on the back. "Sounds like you picked a fight with the wrong guy." Randy doesn't join in. He stares into his drink, jaw tight. Finally, he mutters, "He wasn't random. He was something else." But deep down, Randy knows the truth. Whoever that man was, he wasn't someone to mess with. And next time, they'd remember that. The next morning, the world is still waking up as Jake packs his duffel bag. The past is behind him, but his duty never ends. Emma watches him with folded arms. "So, where to this time?" Jake zips up his bag, slinging it over his shoulder. "Can't say." She sighs but doesn't push. "Just try not to beat up any more bikers before lunch." "Okay." Jake smirks. No promises. Lucas runs up and throws his arms around Jake's waist. "Come back soon, Uncle Jake." Jake kneels, ruffling the boy's hair. "I always do. Buddy. The dive bar reeks of regret, cheap beer, cigarette smoke, and broken pride. Randy, Duke, and Sparky sit in the dimly lit booth, their bodies aching, their egos bruised. The ice in Randy's whiskey glass clinks softly as he swirls it, his face dark with thought. This wasn't supposed to happen. Duke winces as he shifts in his seat, still feeling the deep ache in his ribs. He takes a slow drag of his cigarette, exhaling through his nose. Sparky just stares at his drink, the events of the day playing on an endless loop in his mind. The way Jake moved, the way he hit. It wasn't just a fight. It was a message. Then, a shadow falls over their table. A few bikers from a different crew strut over, grinning like hyenas circling a wounded animal. "Heard you boys got handled by some dude at a kiddie park," one sneers. Laughter erupts from his crew. Duke scowls, flicking his cigarette into a nearby ashtray. "Wasn't just some dude," Sparky mutters, his fingers drumming against his glass. "Guy moved like a ghost. Fast. Precise." The leader of the other gang chuckles, slapping Randy on the back, making him wince. "Sounds like you picked a fight with the wrong guy." More laughter. More humiliation. But Randy doesn't react. He stares into his drink, his jaw tightening. The ice has started to melt, just like the illusion he once had of being untouchable. Finally, he mutters, he wasn't random. He was something else. And deep down, Randy knows the truth. Whoever that man was, he wasn't just some tough guy. He was trained, dangerous, a predator among prey. And next time, they'd remember that. The sun hasn't fully risen. The world still sits in that quiet moment before the day begins. Inside Emma's small but cozy home, Jake is packing his duffel bag. Efficient, precise, no wasted movements. Emma leans against the doorway, arms folded. She watches him, a knowing expression on her face. "So, where to this time?" Jake zips up his bag, slinging it over his shoulder. "Can't say." She exhales, shaking her head. That was always his answer. "Just try not to beat up any more bikers before lunch, okay?" she teases, a smirk playing at her lips. Jake smirks back. No promises. Then, small footsteps. A blur of movement. Lucas runs up, throwing his arms around Jake's waist. "Come back soon, Uncle Jake." Jake kneels, ruffling the boy's hair. His usually sharp, unwavering expression softens. "I always do, buddy." And with that, he turns toward the door. The past is behind him, but his duty never ends. As he steps outside, the morning sun glints off something small but significant, the Navy SEAL insignia on his bag.